Okay, hey guys, it's Asha. Welcome back to Reading with Toby. Today I finally have my March wrap up for you guys. March was actually a pretty good reading month. I think I read a total of 6 books. I should know that. Okay, so I read a total of 6 books this month, which is pretty good. Usually I can only do about 3, but of course, with everything going on, I had a bit more free time. And this month was also a really good reading month because I found 2 of my favorite books so far this year, and they're probably going to be on my top 10 books at the end of the year. Like, I'm already calling it. I love them so much. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the very first book I read this month was actually an audiobook, and that is An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth by Colonel Chris Hadfield. This book was so good. I do own this book physically, actually. I found it at a thrift store like a long time ago, but it's like somewhere in storage. But I decided to listen to it because earlier in the month, going to my family medicine rotation was like an hour commute, and so I was listening to audiobooks. I thought it was so good. Like, I couldn't stop listening to it. I wanted to get in my car to listen to it. Oh my god, it was just so good. So this book, it sounds like it's a like the title kind of makes it sound like it's a self-help kind of book, but it's really not. It's just Chris Hadfield going through why he wanted to be an astronaut, what it took for him to become an astronaut, and all the skills that he learned and was trained, and how he kind of applies those to his real life. And he kind of does it where, like, if you want to take this advice and apply it to yourself, you can, but it's definitely not a like self-help book. Like, a guide to life on Earth is not really that. It's really more just what it's like to be an astronaut, his experience being an astronaut. So as someone who truly loves all things NASA and astronauts and everything like that, I found this completely fascinating. I mean, he does go into detail about, you know, like what they do in space, some of the experiments that they do as astronauts, why they even go up to space. Like, NASA is still sending people up to space, but we don't really hear about it because like society doesn't really care about it anymore. But NASA is still like a big part of society, and they still go up there and do all these crazy experiments, and it's just so fascinating, and I loved it. I loved it so much. So if you are at all interested in what it's like to be an astronaut and the day-to-day life and why we go up there and the skills that they have to learn, like, it was just so fascinating. They have to like learn Russian, they have to be like geologists, they also have to have some medical training. Oh my gosh, and this also made me, like, I already knew that like space medicine was a thing, but this made me want to go into it even more. It's just so fascinating. He has like a little section on space medicine, and it was just so cool. Like, I could geek about it all day. I definitely have a science crush on Colonel Chris Hadfield. He's just so cool, and I loved it, and I definitely recommend this book. It's definitely one of my favorites of the year so far. All right, so after that, I ended up reading my second favorite book, which is The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. I love this book so much. Gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Oh, I also gave The Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth, obviously, 5 out of 5 stars. But yes, I read this next, and this book was amazing. I loved it so much. So this book, you're following Tao living in this world, and something happens that makes him go on a revenge quest. So the society is based off a class system, and he's kind of in the lower class. So in order for him to gain any sort of like credibility or like nobility or anything, he can join the military. He decides to do that after something happens in his life, and he wants to have revenge on people who are in the more noble classes. So he joins the military so he can learn how to fight. But of course, there's like all other elements in this, and it was just so good. Tao is such a complex character. His like change from the beginning to the end is so, like, he turns into such a different person. He becomes so dark and like bent on anger, but like you still feel for him because you know why he does it. And sometimes he can be kind of selfish and just like blinded by his rage, but I just found it so good. There is a bit of a love story, but it's definitely not the focus at all. But there is a little romance that I was like, I loved it so much. It doesn't change perspective, so it's not like your typical adult fantasy like that, but you do sometimes get these little chapters of some of the other characters, and I love those. But the author's also so good at writing where you are he just writes like one sentence about another character, and you like can understand all the other characters so well, what they're feeling, how they feel about each other, how they feel in certain situations. and I just loved it so much. There's also a lot of like fighting scenes. There is like constant action from the beginning to the end, so you're never bored, but there's still so much character development of not just Tao, the main character, but of so many other characters, of his romantic interest, of his like trainer, of just like, oh, it was just so good. I loved it so much. Like, I could geek about this all day. I love the dragon aspects. The women in this book are the ones with the powers, and they're the ones who can call on the dragons. Tao is just fighting some demons, and I just loved it so much. I definitely recommend, even if you aren't super like well-versed in adult fantasy, like I'm not either, this is definitely a very easy book to read. It's very engaging. It's not too, like, the world isn't too complex. It's pretty easy to understand, so I definitely recommend this book. Also at the end, which I wish I knew, didn't find out till I was basically done with the book, but at the end there is a glossary that kind of has, obviously, like glossary, some of the terms used, and then you have this like the little class system so you can learn that. And yeah, I kind of wish that I saw that, because it's not confusing, but it is sometimes they'll say certain words or mention certain places and they don't really explain it, so I just kind of had to like figure it out on my own, which was fine, but that definitely would have come in handy. So just putting it out there so you know. The epilogue was just like so good. I cannot wait for book 2. According to Goodreads, it says it's coming out in like June or July, but I don't know if I believe that. I'm not like, I have hope, but I'm not gonna like put too much weight on that. But yes, I freaking love this so much. I keep thinking about this book. I keep thinking about Tao, and he kind of, even though he like started to scare me a little bit towards the end, I still like feel for him, and I love him, and I love this book, and everyone go read it. All right, so after that, I read this little short book here. This is How You Lose a Time War by Amal El-Mutar and Max Gladstone. So this is a like, I guess, sci-fi love story, and it follows these two agents, and they're two warring agents, and they can kind of like travel through time, and they go back in time to try to disrupt the other agency, and it's very strange, and they start to leave letters to each other in all these different timelines, and they find them, and yeah, they start to fall in love with each other. And yeah, it was very, very, very weird. Like, most of the time you don't really know what's going on. The world is not explained like at all. The two agencies aren't explained. Like, you don't really know why they're fighting, what really they are. It was very out there. But the love story between the two main characters felt very real, and you could like feel them falling for each other and the pain they felt and all that, which is an aspect that I did like. The writing style was like done very well, but I only ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars just because the actual like world itself and everything that they were going through, everything that they were doing, and like traveling back in time and going through these different strands of time and all this stuff, it was just like too much, and I couldn't, I like didn't know what I was just like reading it, and just like it was kind of going over my head. I was like, all right, whatever, I'm just gonna like, whatever he says is happening. I'm just gonna wait until I get another letter. So I had to give it 3 out of 5 stars just for that. It was just a little too out there for me, and there was like no explanation. So yeah, but I still definitely recommend if you're interested. It's a quick short read. So after that, I picked up a contemporary, and this is Girls Brain Brighter by Shobha Rao. I did do a vlog of this, which I will link, I think, there for you guys if you want to go and hear more thoughts in my process of reading this. But this follows 2 girls in India. They become best friends. Something tragic happens that makes them separate, and they live their lives separately for years and years and years. They still think about each other and want to get back to each other, and one of the girls ends up traveling to the United States, and just terrible things keep happening to them, tragic things keep happening to them, but they still like hold out hope. They still try to figure out what it's like, how to be a strong woman, and they're just living in a society that just does not care about women at all, especially younger women. They're just treated so poorly. These girls are trying to like grapple with that, trying to be strong, but like it's so hard because the society they live in doesn't allow that. And it was just heartbreaking and hard to read, but I definitely recommend it. It was written so well. I loved it so much. There's so many amazing quotes about being a woman and being strong, and yeah, I just definitely recommend it. It was very good, but definitely hard to read. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, if I did say. Okay, so after reading that, I wanted like a quick sweet love story. So I decided to pick up randomly Heartstopper Volume 1, a graphic novel. You can read this for free online. So that's what I did. I just read the first volume and I thought it was really cute. It was sweet. It wasn't anything like groundbreaking, anything new, but definitely if you're looking for just something cute and sweet, definitely recommend it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars and I will definitely be reading the rest of them because I did enjoy it enough, and I think I will be buying them just because like they are so pretty and I would like to support the author. But yeah, this was like exactly what I needed, something cute and sweet. So after that, the last book that I read in March was this one here. This is Arkwright by Alan Steele. This is a science fiction novel and I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars, but I still really enjoyed this. You start off following a sci-fi writer and he becomes super famous, then he dies and he leaves all his money to this foundation that he sets up in the hopes that all the stories that he wrote about, science fiction stories, can become true. And he's very passionate about space exploration, and so he wants to use that money to make like a giant spaceship and send it off to another planet in hopes of like, just in case something happens to humanity, we can have like human race can still persevere. And it follows his family from the time he is a teenager all the way, like generations and generations, and then you eventually get to the other planet where his like family line is still there on that planet. So it was really good and just like endearing. You can definitely tell this is just like a love letter to science fiction. This author just loves science fiction. You can definitely feel it. It's definitely a love story to space exploration, which I loved. But yeah, I really liked it. I love like it's kind of broken into different parts, like different books. So you have like book 1, The Legion of Tomorrow, where you like found out about the author's past, and then book 2, and it kind of switches into different generations. So you have like, you follow like his great-great-grandson, you follow like his like great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter, things like that, and then you eventually, like I said, get to the planet where you follow the person on the planet who's related to him. So it's like a generational family story, and it's just really sweet and endearing. The only thing I didn't like, towards in the middle, it kind of got a little bit slow to me, and I also was like hoping that we would actually be on the spaceship and like in space and have a story there, but you didn't. You're just kind of like on Earth as they're building the spaceship, and then you get to them on the planet. So I realize now, because even though I love science fiction, I haven't read too much science fiction, which is something I hope to change, but I do know that I love science fiction where they're on a spaceship and they're like in space. That's just what I love. So that's why I didn't care for this one too much, but this is definitely super easy to read, like very quickly to read, and I definitely recommend it if it sounds interesting to you. I really liked it, and I feel like it's not too, actually there were kind of sciencey bits. Yes, I liked this a lot. It was fun, and yeah, I'm glad I read it. All right guys, so these are all of the books that I read in March, including An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth and Heartstopper Volume 1. A really good reading month. I read a ton of different things. Again, like I said, found 2 of my favorite books so far of the year. So let me know if you've read any of these books or you're curious to read any of these books. Tell me down below, and I will catch you guys in my next one. Bye!